It's not rejection, it's redirection. That just means you haven't found the right one yet, or the right one hasn't found you yet. And in order to find the right one, there's going to be a lot of people saying no. So that's okay. It's just part of it. It's like, okay, noted, moving on. I'm going to keep my attention over here until that thing over there finds its home.
Welcome to the Going North podcast, where you will be informed, encouraged, and empowered to embrace your dreams and advance in life through authorship. I'm your host, best-selling author of the book Stay the Course, and certified leadership trainer, Dom Brightman. Be sure to check out the goods and services from every guest, as well as the host himself, yours truly. Now let the fun begin. How's it going, my friend? It's your host, Dominic Dom Brightman here, just giving you a quick forewarning / disclaimer that, hey, these podcasts are recorded on average 2 to 3.5 months ahead of the release date. So if you're hearing today's episode, most likely it was recorded 2 to 3.5 months before it was launched. So just throwing it out there in case you hear something that may sound a little off. That's the reason why. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, it's the Going North podcast. And we got another super special, awesome human for you today, courtesy of the wonderful PM in the PM, thepodmatch.com. That's right indeed, folks. That's right. If you got cigarettes, aka podcast, we got a matchbook for you, because we got another wonderful guest today, because she has illustrated 44 books and counting, y'all. She's about to have more illustrated books than U.S. presidents, y'all. And 6 of those she's actually wrote. She's actually wrote 6 of them. So she's got 6-pack children's abs, baby. And she's worked with many publishers, including some of the big 4 like HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, Scholastic, Duo Press, Imagination Press, and Free Spirit Publishing, just to name a few. And as an editorial illustrator, that's right, that means she's got that doctorate in illustration, baby. She has contributed art to hundreds of magazines and newspapers. So let's give it up for the VL herself, the victorious and lovely Violet Lemay. How you doing today, Violet?
Thank you for that amazing introduction, Dom. My goodness, that's maybe the best introduction ever. I'm so happy to be invited onto your podcast. Thank you for your hospitality and having me here. Excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you on the show, too. That's right. She's a decorated author, y'all. That's right. She's illustrated some books, written them, and she's also a wife and a mom, so she's off the market, folks. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. They knew she was going to be a gold medal winner. They figured they'd snag her right now.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for adding that. I don't know if it was necessary, but you never know. You never know. Somebody out there might be tuning in thinking, oh, man, what's her status?
Well, I have a wide array of audiences, well, big audiences, so like a motley crew, and a lot of them are female guests, and some of them are female listeners, and some are guy listeners too. So, hey, might as well throw that out there just in case. You never know.
Actually,
It's a
no, I
crazy
do
world out there.
appreciate it. Yeah, it is. No, and I really do appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, we travel a lot too. My husband and I left the United States in 2015 with our son, and we've lived all over. And for a while, I gave this up. But for a while, I was trying to keep sort of a travel blog of the whole thing. And I had a separate, what do you call it? Like a separate persona on Instagram, especially. And I noticed on that one, yeah, I just stopped doing it because so many guys, it was like, I don't even know why, but so many guys were posting and trying to chat. And I don't know how that works, if they were just scamming me or whatever. But eventually I thought, nah, I just don't need this in my life. I just don't need that. Nah, I'd rather be doing books and illustrating books, writing books, and talking about them with you and sharing them with kids. And yeah, that's what my life is like, really. Just books every day.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed.
Hmm.
That's right, indeed. And I'm pretty sure, like, it didn't always get to be this glamorous because it's your first time. I usually try to get the backstory of the folks on the show. So, my feeling is in any cavities on what happened before you became the award winning illustrator of all the gold medals.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm happy to tell you. So I started out in high school getting really interested in doing costumes and scenery for the shows that my high school put on. And I ended up going to a theater conservatory for undergrad school, which was an excellent program. And it was affiliated with professional a professional theater and a professional opera company. So while I was still a university student or college student, I was actually working professionally on all those shows. And I ended up moving to New York City, and I got my degree, and I did that for a long time. For 5 years, I lived there doing that, and realized eventually I was doing it, but I wasn't happy. And so the lifestyle of it was very transitory. I travel now, but at the time, the way that job worked, I had an apartment in New York. I actually lived in Manhattan, which was very expensive, but because it's expensive, you make more money too. So it's sort of like was a wash. But I had to travel all the time for different shows. And every time you started a new show, it was like starting over with new people, and you'd make friends, and then the show would end and it'd all break apart, and you'd go back home and then start over again. And I don't know, I felt like I was young. I was in my 20s, all the way through my 20s, and just felt like I eventually got tired of that lifestyle. So I ended up going to the Savannah College of Art and Design to study illustration, because I thought, at the time, I wasn't 100% sure what illustration was, but when I read about it in SCAD's course catalog, I thought, that sounds like it would make me happy. And got my degree in illustration. And it was kind of similar. SCAD was similar to that theater conservatory in that I took one class in particular called Getting Published, I think was the name of the class, where you would compete with the other students to have your work published in different publications. And we all had stuff published, but yeah, I had several things published before I was even graduating. And then just kind of took off after that. It grew after that. But as you mentioned in the intro, at that time, I wasn't doing children's books. I was doing editorial illustration for magazines and newspapers. That's how I got started. And all of that, I was entering illustration competitions, and I have given up doing that because I'd never get recognized or win anymore. But at the time, this was in like the late 1990s, I think there was one year where I made a whole bunch of art just for competitions and submitted it to everything, and I just won everything. It was this crazy year. And also, I will say I was having a bad year. I was sad and in kind of a sad place. And I think that's why I won, because the art was it wasn't super sparkly. It was like, you might look at it and then want to pull me aside and say, is everything okay? Are you all right, Violet? And but that art won a bunch of competitions. And because of that, this illustration representative, an agency in Montreal, Canada, saw my art in a publication up there because of this award thing. And she invited me into her illustration agency. And so I immediately joined up with her. And that's how my career really got started, because she was fantastic, a fantastic agent. She represented, I don't know, 40 or 60 illustrators. And I mean, it was crazy. I was always working. That's how I racked up those hundreds of publication assignments for really quality publications too, all kinds of newspapers and magazines. At the time, there were tons more newspapers and magazines. Since then, that whole business has taken a real hit. In 2007, when the market crashed, wiped out a lot of that. And that's around the same time-ish that I left her agency and decided to become a children's book illustrator, because my first agent, whose name is Anna, we're still great friends, and I love her so much. I have so much respect for her. She's amazing. She just didn't focus on children's books. I think maybe she does actually a little bit more of that now, but at the time didn't want to have much to do with it because of the pay scale. If you look at the units of work you're producing and the amount of time you spend illustrating a children's book, it's tiny compared to how much money you make doing editorial and advertising, illustration, that kind of thing. So it just wasn't for her. So I went out on my own for a little while. I joined another agency, and then that lovely, lovely, lovely agent, the sweet woman, retired almost immediately after I joined her group, which was odd. Just really strange why she even invited me in, because it was literally like a month or two later when she closed up shop and retired. And then through a Facebook friend, I ended up in a new children's, not new, but new to me, children's book agency called MB Artists, which is where I've been for almost 10 years now. Another incredible agency. My representative, Mela, she is so talented and very well connected and hardworking and just lovely. And a lot of my success in book publishing for sure is thanks to Mela. She's terrific. But yeah, that's the backstory there. And it wasn't all pretty either, because I glossed over some big valleys. There were some sad years. I mentioned how I was in kind of a dark place, and there was a while there where I was having to take other jobs, and I was early in my marriage too, and our marriage was fine, but because of that situation, I was just having to work more in jobs that didn't suit me, that I just didn't like, just for the paycheck, and that's fine, but it was just killing my creativity. And I have always been just so driven to follow this creative dream, whatever it was. If I wanted to do the theater thing or be an editorial illustrator or then a children's book illustrator, if things in life get in the way of my ability to do that, oh, it just makes me extremely unhappy. I have a hard time coping with that. And yeah, there have been some years in my life where I had a hard time coping. But now, I mean, I've developed some coping skills too, which of course those dark times teach you how to handle dark times. But the way my situation is now, and knock wood, I'm so blessed. I'm grateful that I can just focus on my art and my writing, and that's pretty much it. Even my son is just about to turn 21. He even flew the nest, and I don't have to make his lunch every day and look after him every day, which was the joy of my life. And I mourned for a year just anticipating him moving out. Oh, terrible. But now it's just me and my husband, and different time of life, different lifestyle. And so I truly am 100% devoted on my work. And that makes me really, really happy. So I feel like I have the best job on earth, and I'm just so grateful. At least it is for me. And yeah, I'm in a good place, and I celebrate that every day. I'm just grateful.
That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. And it's good that you're grateful indeed. You're now in this place of immense gratitude, abundance of gratitude, because you get to do what you love indeed. And heck, those valleys kind of make us better for, because you mentioned how that one year you were going through a rough time. You actually made the best art of your life, at least according to the folks judging those
Yeah,
contests. So it all
so
worked
true.
out indeed.
I know, that is so true. I think about that a lot, actually. And I taught for a little while too. I went back and taught at SCAD some. That wasn't my cup of tea exactly. I loved the students, but it's just a whole other thing. I just would really rather be making my own art. But I would tell them always about that, about how when you're going through something, when you're an artist, you can use it. No matter what your creative outlet is, you can channel all that stuff into your art. And maybe it's great art, maybe it's not, but even just the process of channeling it, getting it out of you, it's going to help you somehow or other. I mean, whether the art's good or not, it just helps you process the whole thing. So, I think people who have a creative outlet have maybe a little bit of an advantage over people who don't, because they can work through their stuff that way. Yeah. It's cheaper than therapy, depending on what your art is. Not that you might not also need therapy. But yeah, it's definitely helpful. It's definitely helpful. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, because I was thinking, I'm like, well, you're in the art field. That's kind of a little bit on the shinier penny side of the therapy.
Yeah,
Usually.
for sure. For sure.
So my
Oh,
goodness.
hey,
Oh, go
no,
ahead.
go ahead.
Oh,
I
okay, I
was
was
just
about.
gonna say, You go.
Oh, okay. All right. I was just gonna ask if that would you consider that year where you won all those awards in that Valley situation, would you consider that your biggest lemon that became lemonade, or was there a bigger lemon
Oh,
out there that became lemonade?
lemons that became lemonade. Well, I mean, that one really started my whole career, so it would be hard to top that. I can definitely say that there have been times since then where similar things happened, but not that produced the huge abundance of really super tasty lemonade that one did. That was the big story for me. But the thing I was going to say is mm, maybe similar, although this is a very sad thing, and I don't want to use any kind of analogy to try to make it seem like it's not sad, because it just is. But talking about art as therapy reminded me that recently there was a horrible, horrible, horrible mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas. And I mean, that stuff always just gets me. In fact, it was a mass shooting that inspired this book, Let's Be Friends, this happy little children's book. Sort of got the idea to make this book after the mosque shootings that happened in Christchurch, New Zealand. We were living in New Zealand at the time when that happened. Anyway, though, the Uvalde thing, oh my God, just so awful. And I decided to sort of like stop everything I was doing and make art about that, to celebrate the lives of every person who was killed. And I posted them all on Instagram. And Instagram is my main sort of channel, but I also simultaneously post other places, Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. But this was like an artwork I had in my head that I designed for Instagram with its 3 in a row tiles. You know, as you see the three tiles and they scroll. So I alternated between doing like full body images of the kids dancing and playing sports and running around. And every other one was a close-up portrait. So it would be like a full body image on a white background versus a portrait with a colorful background. So it made like a checkerboard pattern on my Instagram, which is what it was designed to do. And because of that, yeah, I was able to connect with some of the families, with one in particular, the family of Alicia Ramirez, who was an artist, her mom, Jess Hernandez, and her dad, Ryan Ramirez. I contacted, well, he sort of reached out to me and we got together, and then the 3 of us talked. And Alicia's mom was just so obviously everyone's devastated, but she was particularly devastated not to be able to celebrate her daughter's art and encourage her daughter to overcome obstacles and just make her art. And so because of all my experience as an illustrator, I make and maintain my own website. I do all the social media marketing for myself. It's basically like running a small business. And so I offered to help them. And I ended up creating a website for them, for Alicia. It's called Alicia Ramirez. No, it's called Alicia's Art Angels. Alicia's Art Angels is the website. And it's a children's art gallery. And anyone can send in art. Any kid 18 years and younger, from 0 to 18, the age doesn't matter. Anyone can email the art to the site administrator, who is me, at hello@aliciasartangels.com. And then I get the email and I sort of like, if the photo's not great, I touch it up a little bit, you know, change the lighting or whatever, post it on the site. And right now the site is running a summertime art supply giveaway, just to sort of like inspire kids to send in their art and parents of kids to send in their art. So we have a GoFundMe running at the same time to raise just a little bit of money. And then at the end of the summer, we're going to give out gift certificates to the winners. You know, the family's going to pick 5 kids and give them gift certificates at the end of the summer. And then we hope, you know, more and bigger and better things will happen as it grows and all like that. So, and because of that, at first, most of the kids who were submitting art were from Uvalde, and some of them even were friends of the victims. Oh my gosh, just so touching and profound, really. And that, you know, it's the parents who are submitting the art to me, and they would send me notes talking about how art is therapy and how their kids were processing the loss of their friends and everything that happened. And I don't know, you read these stories and then just look at the art and see the meaning behind it. It's just, oh, yeah, there's a lot to that about art, just humans being able to process emotions and events through art. Anyway, so that's a privilege for me. I have been involved in that. I don't deserve to be involved in that, or I don't know how it just sort of snowballed. It started as an art project. It was like me processing it for me and posting it, and it became this other thing for other people to process it. And now it's just sort of like a big celebration of children and their art, which is really nice. So we'll see what happens with it. But that was the thing I wanted to share.
It was a good thing to share indeed. That AAA indeed. That's right. That's right. It was Alethea's Art Angels, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Ah, yeah. That's right indeed. The real AAA, y'all. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. And thanks for sharing that too, because that's definitely touching, and it's good that you're able to help those parents, especially a lot of those parents in the
Mm,
Uvalde area with their grieving process, because that's a level of grief that really no one should really experience in life at all.
no,
That's too sad, losing your children,
I
especially to
know.
violence like that. That's
It's so awful. It's just
yeah.
terrible. Yeah. So I just couldn't, you hear about these things and feel so helpless, and I don't know if I could say this to anyone out there. I was so tired of feeling helpless. I thought, what can I do? I mean, I don't even live in the United States. I live in Malaysia. What can I do from here? And I draw kids for a living. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to draw these kids. That's one thing I can do. I'm going to draw these kids. And just because of that one decision, all this other stuff happened. And I don't know, if I could encourage anyone to do anything, it would be that, just to, if you're ever feeling helpless and like you can't make a difference, maybe just ask yourself, what is one thing I can do right now? And maybe it's just a little thing and it'll only matter to you. Or maybe it's a little thing that would light a spark and become something a little bit bigger. So it helped me feel better, I'll tell you that. And it was scary too. I was afraid to start all this because it's a political thing and I just don't like to mess with that online. I try to protect my brand. I guess I'm a children's book illustrator. I don't want to be political. I just want to illustrate children's books. But I thought, nah, this time I'm doing it. I'm just doing it. And I would say I am extremely grateful that I decided to do that. So for what it's worth.
I can say that again. It is definitely not a political thing. It's a human life thing. Like those are
Yeah.
human lives. Those are children. Like that's
Thank you,
beyond
Dom.
politics.
Yes, thank you, Dom. I'm not even sure why I said that, but other things, there are other instances in which I also feel helpless and wish I could do something that are maybe more political. And I've always just said, no, I'm just gonna illustrate my books and sit here, but not this time.
Have you ever decided to draw out random emojis or random idiots with their word bubbles and somebody being forced to take nap time if they say something stupid?
You know, I'll have to jot that down for the next time I'm looking for some inspiration. That'll be my task for the day.
There you go. The Nap Time Chronicles.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. That's really funny, Dom. That's a good one.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. The world's problems were solved because everybody was hungry and needed to nap and some food. They needed some warm milk.
If adults had nap time, the world would probably be a much better place. Just work it right into the day. Everybody just chill out, eat a cookie. Yeah.
That's right indeed. Eat a cookie. That's right. That's right. Val's
Mm.
got you covered with the wonderful chips. I'll bring the chocolate.
That's right. I've got it right here. I'm still a mom, so I've always got the snacks in my bag. I'm ready to go.
There you go. That's right indeed. The original superhero, the mom. That's right indeed. That's right
Yes.
indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, you mentioned earlier you had a travel blog where you're traveling across the globe, and I believe you traveled all the way from the U.S. of A. all the way to New Zealand and now Malaysia because of your husband's work, right?
Yeah, it's because of his job. In the middle of that, we left, we left New Zealand so that he could pursue a really nice opportunity in China. He left before we did, then my son and I followed after my son graduated from his high school. And then immediately after we arrived in China, COVID happened while we were in China, just 500 miles from Wuhan. So we had to leave China, and that was someday that will be a book, because that was the most stressful experience of my life for sure, all of us. But yeah, then because that opportunity for my husband sort of just collapsed in on itself, we all went back to New Zealand because my son was headed there anyway to start university. And my son moved into the dorms. My husband and I just floated around in Airbnbs for about 9 months. He got his next job, which is the job we're at right now in Malaysia, almost immediately. But because of COVID, everything was just crazy, and it took forever to get the visa to be allowed to come here and just to be able to travel. So yeah, we had about a 9-month sort of like in between period, which wasn't bad, but just like having to take an unexpected expensive vacation in New Zealand. Not the worst thing, but maybe not the thing you'd want to do. But anyway, we got to be near our son for his whole near, meaning somewhere on the island while he was away at university for his first year of school, which was nice. Then we were able to finally relocate here, and we've been in Malaysia. I think we're going to be starting our 3rd year here. I think that's right. So we've been here for 2 years. Yeah, it's really wonderful here. It's interesting. I never thought I would ever live in Malaysia. I was sent here on a business trip once, just for like a weekend or something, years and years and years ago, but barely remembered it. But where we live, which is in what they call the new part of Malaysia, it's the bottom tip of the country. A Chinese developer worked with Malaysia to build an entire city from scratch called Forest City. They built it on reclaimed land, meaning they dumped a bunch of sand into the actual ocean to extend the coastline of Malaysia. You look it up online, you'll see it. They built an entire city with a school, and the school is where my husband works. And COVID sort of did a number on this whole project also, because just as the city was starting to get populated, I think, so we can see Singapore from our windows. Singapore is right across the Strait of Johor. You can see it right out there, but it's a whole different country. But Singapore is like the New York City or the Paris of Asia. It's expensive. And so the thinking was that a lot of people who live in Singapore would come across to Forest City and populate this city to live a little bit more cheaply and then commute to go back and forth to their jobs. But COVID hit and everybody had to isolate. And so that has really slowed that whole thing down. Now things are opening back up. And for example, when we're driving around at night, you can see Forest City, and it used to be just dark. It was strange. It was like this entire city with just a few lights on. But now there are more and more lights coming on, and it looks a lot healthier and more vital. And so things are starting to pick up. But yeah, that's where we've lived. It's interesting because I've always drawn kids from all over in my books. And that's partly from just being a children's book illustrator. I worked for Highlights magazine for decades. And I was wondering about this recently. I think it might be my experience with Highlights that sort of trained me to always, in every illustration, include just kids from all over. It's like the United Nations every time you turn the page. And but I always loved that. And that was one thing we loved about moving to Auckland, because living in Auckland is a very diverse city. So it's like, you know, you're walking down the street and you're like moving through this sea of all these different people. And now we live at an international boarding school, which really is like a little slice of the United Nations. It's kids from all over. It's so interesting. So I almost feel like the books were, you know, like I was drawing it all those years, and then we sort of like just moved into it. It's almost like they became real somehow. I don't know, it's just sort of interesting. Like you know, they say you're focused on one thing and that's where you end up, you know. You're putting all your focus into this thing, you're going to end up in that thing. So focus on something positive, because that's your focus is going to direct where you end up. And I feel like maybe I was focused on just diversity for so long that we ended up in this amazing boarding school with all these kids from all over. It's pretty cool.
Cooler than two cucumbers, I bet. That's right. Hey.
The double cucumber cool. That's right.
There we go, the DCC, baby. The double cucumber cool. Now it has a name. There we go.
Hashtag it. Dom, hashtag it.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, so with all that wonderful work with highlights and then getting a chance to really travel all the way across the freaking globe, or the pancake for the flat earthers, my goodness. So what's probably been the most rewarding thing about being in Malaysia now? Like, I'm pretty sure what's the difference between Malaysia and probably the US of A right now in this post
Oh, wow.
phase 1
Well,
pandemic age?
yeah. Well, Malaysia is just so different from the United States. If you are interested in how Malaysia handled the pandemic, that was completely different. That was like hardcore. I mean, everything was locked down, and you would be fined if you weren't wearing a mask. But like, for example, during the extreme lockdowns, only one person at a time could go into the grocery store, or even
Wow.
just travel in a car. And there would be checkpoints along the highways and along the roads where guards carrying machine guns would look in your car to make sure, it's just you, or there's only two of you, or whatever like that. And Malaysia had a nationwide app that everyone had to have on their phone called My Sagittarius, which was basically a tracking app. So every time you would arrive at a new location, you would scan a QR code, and that would be put into this national system so that they knew where you were. So that way, if there was an outbreak, they would be able to send you a note and say, okay, you need to stay home because you were exposed to COVID. And it would also change your status on the app so that you couldn't get in anywhere anymore because you'd been exposed
Ouch.
to COVID. Because before you would be admitted to anywhere, you have to show your phone to show your status that you were vaccinated and all of that. So yeah, they handled the whole pandemic thing way more seriously than the United States did. And then just Malaysia itself is just so different. But since we live in the new part, the built from scratch new part, my husband says it looks a lot like Orlando. And it does kind of. It's really lush. Everything's meticulously landscaped. You sort of drive between these city centers, and they're very modern, new city centers. Like a little cluster of not super tall, but 10-story, residences and office spaces and stuff like that. But then as you're driving between them, you drive past traditional Malaysian residences, little tiny houses and huts that are like almost like they look like they're in the jungle. And then there's like, those are the extremes. And then in between, there's sort of like in between stuff. Yeah, and the weather's always around middle 80s. It gets hotter sometimes. I don't know if you could hear it's thundering out there. We're going through a little bit of a rainy jag right now, where it rains a little bit every day. Malaysia is a melting pot, so we gave up even trying to learn how to speak Malay, because when you meet people, you don't know what language they speak. Everyone speaks something different. We just gave up. There's people from all over Asia here. Lots of Korean people, Chinese people, people from India, people from Bangladesh. They're just really from all over. Nepal, lots of people from Nepal. So yeah, it's a real melting pot. Yeah, and it's a beautiful place to visit. I highly recommend it. Because things only just started opening up a few months ago, we've lived here for 2 years, but we haven't had a whole lot of time to explore. And it's our summer now, and I guess your summer too, where our son is in New Zealand, it's winter now. So I'm always confused about what season it is. But anyway, because it's the summer school break and my husband works at the school, we've had a little bit of time. So we traveled around a little bit, and oh my gosh, Malaysia is really cool. It's a really fun place to explore. We went to the city of Malacca, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's ancient and fascinating and just so cheap, and just so fun to walk around and buy stuff at the little shops and eat amazing food for nothing, and drink amazing coffee or tea or whatever, and just so fun. And then the capital is Kuala Lumpur. We went there too because we had to get our passports renewed, and Kuala Lumpur is where the US Embassy is, so we had to go there. So we spent a night or two there, and what a gorgeous city. Oh my goodness. So safe. You could just walk around, and it's super modern, and there's lots of things you'd recognize from the United States there. The malls are full of typical stores, and stores you might be used to seeing, some you wouldn't be, but lots that you would. And everything, the cost of living is just so cheap that it's a very affordable, wonderful trip if you ever want to visit. And the main thing that we've noticed as we've lived outside the US is that healthcare everywhere else is so affordable that now we're not sure we'll ever be able to move back, because once you live with a different healthcare system, it's hard to want to go back to the US healthcare system, which is the only thing about the US that I wouldn't want to go back to is the healthcare. I mean, my family's there and we love the United States, but it makes it harder to think about retiring there, because it would change. Healthcare alone would change our lives, the quality of our lives, how we would be able to retire in the US versus somewhere else. So I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, it's important, I think, to travel and see the world. It rounds you out as a human. I think it just helps to see how other people live, and I don't know, just to celebrate life. Really, it's a cool world. It's fun to be able to see it.
That's what I'm talking about. You'll turn into a shape of a Kirby before it absorbs powers if you travel. That's right.
There's another hashtag in there somewhere, but I can't quite find it. Hashtag shape of a Kirby.
That's right. It's Kirby's world indeed. That's right. Violet's world. That's right indeed. Oh my goodness. So what's like next for you, or heck, even, I'm pretty sure, is there anything else that's been inspiring your future work now that you've had 3 years in Malaysia, and who knows if there's another country transition on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I know my husband is looking seriously into, well, like I said, he's getting into retirement age. So his hobby is researching what our next stop is going to be. And he's looking a lot at South America and different places in South America. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. But I'm always working on different books, and that's a long process. It's like, even just writing the book, even if it's a picture book, can take some time. And then at first you just draw sketches before the book is purchased. It's just sketches. And then when someone buys the book, then you make the final art. But even just making the sketches for a book is time consuming. But I write other books too. I just finished writing a middle grade novel. So that, took 1.5 years. They just all take a long time. And then once I have finished my part, then my agent starts trying to pitch them to different publishers, trying to find a publisher. And that process can be very long too. That can take years, because sometimes you just get, I heard Kate DiCamillo, who wrote Because of Winn-Dixie and many other amazing books. I saw recently somewhere she posted one story of hers was rejected 100 times before she found that publisher. And that's a lot of rejection, but that's also a lot of time, because for each one of those rejections, you have to submit that book and then wait. You have to give them enough time to get to it and then to read it and then decide what they're going to do with it. That can take 3 months, 6 months, times that by 100, that's years and years and years. It can take a long time to get a book published. So I am always working on new ideas, but also trying to find a house or a home for the ones that already came out of me and that I already got down, already created, is what I'm trying to say. And I have a whole list of ideas that I want to pursue that I haven't done yet. So yeah. So right now, summer is always slow in publishing. It's like everybody just rolls up the mats and closes the doors and the shutters, and they're like, see you till September. So I take the month of August typically to update my website. I've been doing that and just post some stuff on Instagram to get some new art out there, trying to attract new clients. But I'm also polishing up that novel I told you about and trying to finalize that so I can send it out. And yeah, in the last few days, I've just been asking myself, all right, so once you get that out the door, what's going to be the next one? Because I feel like it's time to start something new. So I don't know, I'm going to look at my list and maybe just pick one of those or take some long walks and let my brain go and just see if I can come up with a fresh idea. So I don't know. We'll see.
Oh yeah, that's right. With all five eyes, if you have to, we'll definitely see. Indeed, that's right. Indeed, because the third eye is overrated. Gotta have a pair of specs too, y'all. That's right. Indeed.
That's hilarious. I just posted on Instagram a drawing I made of an Indian girl with the I forget what she called the bindi. She's wearing a bindi on her forehead and glasses, so she has all five eyes.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So you mentioned clients earlier. So my goodness, so what do aspiring children's books writers need to keep in mind when looking for an illustrator to illustrate their children's novel? Because illustrations are like the major piece of
Mm,
children's books for kids. So what do
mhm.
folks need to keep in mind when approaching you for business or any illustrator for that matter?
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, for any writers out there, the first most basic tip is if you want to submit your work to a publishing house and have the publishing house buy your book and publish it, then they want to pick the illustrator. So don't even think about it, because that it could just be a conflict of interest at the end. Like it might be that that publisher looks at your book and they love the idea, but they just don't like the art. And then that's uncomfortable. And so then they might just reject it based on that. And also then you would have spent time and money and all of that just getting an illustrator. So don't, if you, first of all, if you want to submit your art to a publisher, don't get an illustrator. But if you want to do hybrid publishing or self-publishing, like a lot of people do these days, I would say illustrators can be expensive, but the money is money well spent. So be prepared to come up with a realistic budget, because if you think about it, that illustrator, if it's a picture book, that person might have to spend an entire, let's say 3 months of working every day, 8 hours every day to illustrate that book. So how much would you want to be paid if you had a job where for 3 months where you were working 8 hours a day every day? You know, it's expensive. However, do not despair, because a lot of illustrators, when they're just starting out, will work for less money because they need the experience and they need to be able to show these illustration credits and show the world what they can do. And so one nice way to be able to do that is to find people who have recently graduated with their illustration degree. And a nice way to find those people is to actually contact any university that has an illustration program. And there are lots of them. Google it. It's an easy thing to Google. Just say you're an author looking for an artist. Can they recommend an illustrator? And I bet you'll get some really good recommendations of people who are just starting out. Working with brand new illustrators isn't ideal because experience is a great thing and the illustrator can really help you through the process too. But it'll just cost you more to hire someone with experience. So yeah, my advice would be, first of all, decide what your budget can bear, how much you can afford, and then make a game plan based on your budget. I mean, you can even get illustrators through Fiverr, you know, but if you do something like that, you might be just causing yourself more headaches than you want. You might want to hire someone who has a little bit more experience. You can look at illustrators on societyofwritersandillustrators.com, which is a free .org, scbwi.org, Society of Writers and Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. There it is, scbwi.org. That's a free website for anyone who wants to write or illustrate children's books. But if you get involved with SCBWI, you can even go to local meetups and you might be able to find an illustrator in your area, which would be amazing, because then you could really, you know, just meet and see eye to eye on things and become real partners in that project and work on it together. So that would be That's a good suggestion, I think, to try SCBWI. There's another website run by a friend of mine called Hire an Illustrator. That's a really cool website. And I know a lot of younger illustrators are on that site who are eager for work, but who also do have some experience. And so that's a great place to look. And the person who runs that site, his name is Darren DiLietto. He's a friend of mine. He actually works sort of like as a representative for all the illustrators, even though he's not officially their representative, meaning he doesn't take a cut of their fee, which my illustration agent and that's what an agent does. That's how they make their money, is taking a percentage of your fee. But he doesn't take a cut. He just runs the website. But he sort of acts as an agent in that he will recommend people and talk to them and that kind of thing. So yeah, so I would recommend scbwi.org and hireanillustrator.com. And if you're on a budget, yeah, spend some time researching schools and find some recent grads. That's my advice.
Yeah, that's right. That solid gold flow from the good Violet herself, baby. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So find some college students, y'all. Find some college kids. Be like that meme online. It's like, hey, this gig isn't paid, but you get plenty of exposure. And then they'll reply, hey, I need 800 exposures. This is perfect. I'm just kidding. Don't actually let him eat, folks. Let him eat.
Yeah, everybody's got to eat.
Exactly. You wouldn't want folks to do that to you in reverse, so definitely let folks eat.
That's right.
It's gonna take more than exposure. Exposure can go left and right. So my goodness. So since
That's
you've been
right.
on a yes, indeed. So, since you've been on a few podcasts recently promoting the good work you're doing to spread some joy across the planet Earth, is there a question that you wish to be asked more often?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me this. I've been thinking about that. That's a toughie. Maybe this one. I wrote down 3, but let's go with this one. I think maybe just how do you stay motivated and inspired despite rejection? I mentioned how Kate DiCamillo, who is amazing, one of the most decorated authors in the children's book universe, she gets rejected. And if rejection is it is a normal part of your everyday life in publishing, how do you just go on? How do you stay motivated and just keep going? And I would say my answer to that is it's very, very effective and important for me to always be working on a whole bunch of different things at once. Because that way, when one thing gets rejected, it's like, you just put that over there. I'm really busy on this over here, so I can't even think about that one right now. I'm just going to work on this one. And I really recommend that. I've known a lot of authors and illustrators who are so desperate to get this one thing published, and every rejection is just so crushing. And I totally get that. And not everybody even wants to write or illustrate more than one book. Sometimes it's a personal project, and that's the one thing you're just really trying to get this one thing done. But even in that situation, I think there might be more than one approach you could take with the same idea. So diversify your ideas, like, for example, I wrote a book about the Obamas some years ago. It was a Lift the Flap book about the Obamas. And when I first wrote that book, I wrote it as kind of a more literal nonfiction book for little kids, like a nonfiction picture book that was just going to be about the life of Barack Obama. And then I realized that wasn't going anywhere, wasn't getting any traction from publishers. So I tried adding an element to it to give the kids something to do when they read the book. So I used a book I illustrated years ago called 100 Pablo Picassos. I applied that model to the Obama book, and I made it 100 Barack Obamas. And that didn't go anywhere either. So then I tried, I tried 3 or 4 different things before I arrived at the Lift the Flap book, which eventually did get published. So yeah, if you're experiencing a lot of rejection and you're feeling kind of down, I would say maybe instead of focusing on the rejection, take another look at your idea and see how it could lead to a second project or a third project, and just keep blasting away until that idea gets published, or just move on to another idea. and don't discard that one, but it's finished as much as you can finish it. Put your attention on something else and just keep flooding the world with your stuff until it finally gets picked up. It's like, it could almost be like a numbers game. Like if you throw enough stuff at the wall, eventually something's going to stick, you know? So yeah, I think my main advice would be keep your attention and your energy on the positive aspect of what you're doing, which is the creative process. And don't pay too much attention to the rejections. I have an author friend who likes to say, it's not rejection, it's redirection. That just means you haven't found the right one yet, or the right one hasn't found you yet. And in order to find the right one, there's going to be a lot of people saying no. So that's okay. It's just part of it. It's like, okay, noted, moving on. I'm going to keep my attention over here until that thing over there finds its home. So there you go. I asked and answered myself that question that nobody else has asked me before.
Hey, well, solid gold flow again. That's right. Val's been leaving y'all a tennis bracelet of gems this episode, baby. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Y'all went to Zales today, folks. I'm telling you. That's right, indeed. Y'all went to K, y'all. That's right. Y'all went to that K Jewelers and got that kiss of that children's illustration, baby. That's right.
Thank you, Dom. That's really, really sweet. Thank you. I feel sparkly.
Well, hey, I mean, all that hard work you do illustrating 44 books is no easy feat. And heck, being able to have 6 of them as your own as double champion, it's like, yeah, I wrote and draw this, darn it. I'm the best in the world. It's like, yeah, baby. Check out these pythons. That's right. These pythons drew these books, baby.
Illustrator arms are not pythons, but yes, yeah, of course. The pythons, I guess it would be more like this, like, my book is the book is the python.
That's right. Unless it's the Picasso book, and then it's a wiener dog. It's extra long.
That's right.
Oh man, that's right indeed. Solid gold flow indeed. Rejection is just redirection. Like that is a quote right there. That's a one-liner, baby. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Whoever your author friend is, they get a gold star for that one. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Maybe
Oh, her name is Marcia Marks, by the way. I'm not sure if she originated that little quip, but that's, I would say for me, it's Marcia who said that. Yeah. She's a writer. You can look her up.
Well, Marcia Marks, Miss Marcia, Miss Eminem, Marcia. I love it. That's right indeed. She's probably got marshmallows too. I freaking love it. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Well, speaking of marshmallows, you got a super special awesome. Well, heck, all of them are super special awesome. But your latest book, Let's Be Friends. If that book was a food, what would it be and why?
Oh, wow. Ooh, okay. I'll tell you what this book is like. I just ate a typical Malaysian dessert that I never had before. It's called cendol, Cendol. You can look it up. Let's Be Friends is a lot like that because it's multinational, like cendol is from another place, and it's layered, like these flaps are layered. This is the Lift the Flap book, so it has all these surprises. And cendol, the dessert, is very surprising. If you read the ingredients, it doesn't seem, well, not that, like this book, if you read the ingredients, seems like it's going to be great. But cendol, you might, with an American palate, you might think, it's basically a pile of shaved ice, which is the starter for a lot of typical Asian desserts because it's hot over here. But it's shaved ice. And then I think there's coconut milk on there and some type of special Malaysian sugar that you put on after. Oh my God, that is the thing that's so good. But then there's other stuff on there, including these red beans that if sometimes you get a sweet Asian dessert or pastry, it might have like red bean paste in it. It's like this sweet bean. And the bean is what makes me think, I don't know if I'm going to like this dessert. But cendol, oh my gosh, if you ever have a chance, it is so good. Oh, my husband and I tried it recently And it was so good at the first restaurant where we had it. And now we've been just zipping around trying to find it at other places because it was so, so tasty. Anyway, I would say because of the layered quality and because it was so surprising, and every bite, because it's like a mix of different ingredients, you mix it up as you go, every bite was like a little bit different. And it would kind of surprise you, like you think, oh, first it tastes like this, but wait a minute, now it tastes like that. Yeah, this book is kind of like that because of the flaps. You think you're looking at one thing and then you lift the flap and it's a surprise. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at something I wasn't expecting. So I would say let's be friends. Let's be friends is like the Malaysian dessert chendol.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. And an original answer on this podcast for that question. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed.
It's a
That's
very
right,
fun
indeed.
question.
Oh yeah, that's right, indeed. Because hey, I interview authors. They want to sell some books. Hey, let's sell them in a different way. Let's get them in that at least 2 of the senses, maybe 3 of them.
There you go. Very clever. Way to go, Dom.
Oh yeah, that's right, indeed. So my goodness, chendol. So shaved ice, coconut milk, and a special Malaysian sugar. Was there any other
There
ingredients
are
too?
other
Or?
ingredients, but I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing. I think there's this is going to sound terrible, and it's not. And I'm sorry, because I also know I'm saying the wrong thing. It's green. If you got a green tea matcha, it's the stuff that's that color, but I think it's some kind of grass jelly. It's a grass jelly. And then there's the red beans. So you've got the red color, the green color, and then the ice. And then the sugar is liquid. And the way it was served to us, it came in this little, like a little creamer like you'd use for your coffee. And you apply your own sugar, but that special Malaysian sugar, it must be some kind of cane sugar that's made here. Oh man, is it good? Wow, is that good? Recommend. Hashtag recommend. Try your chendol or just try the sugar. The sugar is what made it. It was amazing.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right. As soon as you said green, I'm like, oh, maybe that's what she was talking about. It was soil and green. Like, oh no, grass jelly. Okay, that's totally different.
Yeah. Well, that does not sound appealing to me, but it's a common element of desserts here and other things. Like I think you can get a bubble tea with grass jelly in it, and it's common here. Yeah.
There we go. That's right, indeed. And the good news is it's probably extra natural. It doesn't have all the extra stuff that we got over here too. So that's right. You get the natural good stuff.
That's right. It's green. It must be good for you, right? It's got to be good.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, this has definitely been fun in the bun. You're welcome back on this show anytime. My goodness, my goodness. That's right.
Thanks,
indeed.
Dom. Thank you so much. Thank you. You're a very gracious host. Your show is wonderful. You have such a fun, positive energy. It's just cool to connect with a guy who's putting so much good stuff out into the world, so much good content.
Oh, pleasure indeed. And you're helping to make it happen. So it's mutual. That's right. We're like a whole circle. That's right,
That's
indeed.
right.
That's
Yeah.
right, indeed. And speaking of circle, there's circles of life. So my goodness, coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're still in 2022, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, I would definitely tell myself to focus on the positive. Just that. Because when I was younger, for sure, I'm very, very sensitive. A lot of artists are. We're so sensitive, so easily crushed. And I would say, you're going to be okay, but the road would be a lot smoother if you would just focus on the positive. Don't put your attention on the negative stuff. Just move it aside and focus on the good in people, focus on the good in your work, focus on the good in yourself, focus on the good in the world. And you'll just feel happier, and then your work is going to be better. So that would be my advice to young me. And I wish I could do that. I wish I could go back and redo with that advice. But oh well, you just move forward, right? What else can you do?
Oh, yeah. Funny part is people always forget the second half of the question. It's a 3-part question because the other part of that question folks don't think about is like if they have a significant other, they would be by default a cradle robber if that happened.
Oh, that's true.
It's like
That's true. Maybe don't think about this too much. Or
It's like for the ladies, they become the youngest cougar ever. If they're a guy, they become a freaking sugar daddy at 25.
We're in too deep. We're into this hypothetical too deep. Get out of here.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. But besides being deep in thought, folks need to be deep in your catalog and buy some of your books for their kids and their lives indeed, and get them in their schools if they aren't there already. And keep up with your journey on top of that. So for those who need to do just that, what's the best way for folks to do so?
Oh, right. If you just Google Violet Lemay, tons and tons of stuff will come up. You can go to Amazon and just type my name in there, and lots of books come up, or Barnes and Noble, or if you just go to your local, if you prefer to support your local bookseller, just go in there and buy my books there, or you can order them. They're widely accessible. It's easy to find them. And I really appreciate that, Dom. And I appreciate all of you who are hearing this. It's hard to sell books and it's hard to get books published, but when you guys support authors and illustrators by buying their books and leaving reviews and just even following us on social media, it really helps, because those numbers matter to people who publish books. So I so appreciate all your support. Truly, you, Dom, and just everybody out there. Just really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Ooh, that's what I'm talking about, indeed, folks. So go ahead and support Miss Royalty herself, Violet's Purple, aka Royalty. So check it out like a library book, y'all. Buy some of her books, indeed. Check her out if you're looking to publish a children's book and need some of that good illustration with that award-winning touch. I'm telling you, that's right, indeed. She's got you covered like a blanket. We're going to put all the links to that in the show notes, including the wonderful AAA from earlier, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right,
Oh,
indeed.
yeah. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Too special not to put in the show notes, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So any parting words before we close up shop, Violet?
Oh, just thank you. And I hope you all have a blessed day. And yeah, be nice to yourself, be nice to everybody else, and celebrate life. Thank you, Dom. Thank you so much.
How's it going, my friend? I'm so glad you made it to the end. That shows that you are an uncommon finisher, and I am so grateful for you sharing your ears, your attention, and your time to this wonderful podcast to do something that'll take yourself to the next level. And for everybody else involved in this wonderful program, share it with at least 3 people in your network, so that way more folks can not only catch the fire that is on this podcast, but can also be inspired to be their best. Advance others to advance yourself.